You know, I've had a bunch of people asking me about the tractor lately, what the status of it is. To bring those of you up to date, when we got the tractor over here, we started messing around with it, and we quickly realized that the four-wheel drive wasn't working. So luckily, there was one of the few people in the country that knows anything about Mitsubishi gray market tractors. And he happens to own a shop here in the valley. So we took it over to him, and he's had his head mechanic, Lemuel, going over it. And he calls me about every week and gives me updates and everything. But as far as the four-wheel drive goes, here's the deal. You know, we were afraid that it was going to be a really involved process to get into. You know, sometimes the process can be pretty involved and sometimes it isn't. We're fortunate in that this one was not, at least as far as getting to it and all that. You know, he checked out the rear end. The rear end was fine. Everything was working the way it should. There's a pin that connects between the actuator lever and the four-wheel drive that kicks it in that he thought maybe might have broken, and then we'd have to get that re-welded or something. That pin is actually fine. All the gears mesh up good. You know, everything's working the way it should. You know, for all intents and purposes, the four-wheel drive should be working fantastic. Except for one little detail. Somebody, at some point, for whatever reason, removed the front left axle and miter gear from the front end. I can only assume that they had broken it. You know, maybe they got it under torsion or something and it snapped that axle. And rather than having it just flop around all the time, they went ahead and removed it. Well, that's great if you don't need a four-wheel drive. If you got to have a four-wheel drive, you need those parts. If we could find the parts, then Lemuel's got a guy that can pretty much weld this thing back together so that it's, you know, neat and tidy and works and everything's great. You know, and that'd be the end of it. But we got to have the parts. I sent a message to a buddy of mine that found this tractor for me to ask him to get in touch with the guy I got it from, because they're friends, and you know, Tommy lives in another state, so it's a little bit easier for him to get in touch with him than it is for me to. So I'm kind of waiting to hear back from him on whether or not he still has the parts. You know, I'm kind of hoping that he just took the axle out, you know, the broken pieces, and just kind of throw them down on the ground somewhere beside the shed or barn or whatever, but that they're still laying there. We have called Japan, and that axle is not a part that's available. So, you know, we're either going to have to find the part through, you know, God knows what outlet. Get the parts that we do have or can find fixed. Or have somebody fabricate one. If it's even possible. I don't even know if it's possible. I don't know if you can fabricate, you know, an axle. If any of y'all know anybody that, you know, can fabricate an axle, you know, I would appreciate anything that y'all could do towards, I don't know, talking them into it. Because I'm sure it's not going to be an easy job. You know, and quite honestly, I can't afford thousands and thousands of dollars to have it done. You know, it'd be great if I could find somebody that wanted to do it out of the goodness of their heart. But I don't expect anybody to do that. So anyway, that's the deal with the tractor.